Oh,
right.
Man. Wow. So 2020, once again, never ceases to amaze me. Whenever you're hearing this, people, we're right before a hurricane in Houston, and I don't know if we made it or not. If we didn't, you know what I'm saying? Hey, it is what it is.
Yeah, we always record a little bit earlier, like a week, maybe 2 weeks in advance. And so far, I was going to say it hasn't been a problem, but it is. Like, we did a recording literally right before everything shut down for Corona. Yeah. We're like, I don't know what's about to happen next. Literally, the episode comes out, it's like everything is shut down.
Yeah.
So we're doing this recording in light of our last situation. We're just gonna say, hey, we hope everybody's safe. We hope the whole thing just blew through. We hope it was nothing. Like, I hope I just got off of work for a few days for nothing, and it was just, that was it. That's what I'm hoping.
God, man. I pray.
That's what I'm hoping.
Yeah, because 2020, once again, never ceases to amaze me. But the NBA is good.
Oh, the NBA is fantastic.
Yeah.
The NBA is so much better than I thought it would be. And it's a lot of people are popping out that I did not think we would be talking about right now, including look, the Rockets are my team, and James Harden is playing defense. And
James Harden is playing defense.
They have told me for the last, all his career, that James Harden does not know how to play defense. Yeah. That's what they've been telling me. And apparently he can, and when he does, everybody else does. So I don't know. Who knows what's happening right now? 2020 is surprising. It's surprising.
Everything's up for grabs. Everything is up for grabs. But that's the thing about 2020. You don't know what can happen. We don't know what can happen in 2021. Hopefully in this year, all the bad things end, and we could, 2021, we could redeem ourselves.
I'm hoping so. I'll be redeemed.
And our next guest knows a lot about redemption. Redemption is the action of saving or being saved from sin, error, or evil. Not saying this man's evil, because he's not. The man's changed his life. He's a band leader by choice and plays numerous instruments like the trombone, piano, and also he sings. He's a Houston legend, yes. We don't throw around that term loosely. This man's been around for a minute. He's a Houston legend alongside Bun B, Paul Wall, Bushwick Bill, ESG, Scarface, to name a few. An entrepreneur who bet on himself and he won. Pasadena's own Henry Darragh, also known as Doc Loke, with the EP in stores right now. What can I say? Not to mention everything else that you can find on him.
We just want to make sure we got Henry D. We got the name right. We got Doc. Yeah. Doc. Say your name again. Doc
Loke.
Doc Loke for the people, because like you were saying, how do people like to pronounce it?
Doc Lock.
It's literally, it rhymes,
yeah.
So they just kind of immediately go for. That's how I was saying. I was like, oh, Doc Lock.
Well, they might also look at me and my unassuming look and say, "This ain't no Loke. Why are you calling yourself a Loke?
There ain't no
Loke. Kid from the suburbs,
Yeah.
He ain't got no Loke history."
Yeah,
that's true. Well, you know what? You have an interesting history. You got this runs the gamut. So let's go back, like way, 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 way back, and let's just talk. We'll just start from the beginning. Where were you born?
Pasadena, Texas.
Pasadena, Texas. All right. So for people that have not been to Pasadena, Texas, just let us know what. As he lets out the sigh, what is Pasadena, Texas like?
Well, everybody's got to be from somewhere, and there are lots of rednecks in Pasadena, Texas. Used to be the capital of the Klan. The Klan, and so that's where I grew up in, with a lot of shut minds, and I didn't grow up seeing people of color. There were the Coles when I made it to high school. The Coles. It was two sisters and a brother.
Oh wow!
And that's the environment I grew up in.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. It didn't start integrating until the 2000s.
Really?
Yeah.
Yep.
So
when I got out of TDC, I saw, I actually cried when I got home. I saw, it feels weird to say, but it's the truth. I saw Black people walking around in my area that I grew up in, and I literally cried because I was like, how did this happen?
Yeah. Because before you went, and you said when you got out of TDC, we're going to get to that point, but you had been removed from Pasadena for a minute. So, right. I mean, let's talk about leading up. I mean, well, you know what? Before we even get there, growing up, were you inclined towards music?
I didn't have a choice, really. My mom is a singer-songwriter. She plays guitar and sings and plays piano. I'm the secular musician in the family. All her music is for Jesus. So I grew up in the church. I grew up in choir, singing in the choir, and I always had a piano. And I had a gift of the ear that I get from her and from my grandmother on my dad's side. So, music came from God, and fortunately I was allowed to be in band. That's where my musical instruction started at age 11. Oh, okay. And I started on the trombone. I played piano, self-taught, real bad habits. And, but I was encouraged by my family. They never said, don't do music.
So music has always been just a big part of what's going on in the family. But you said you're the secular musician in the family. What music were you listening to? Because you had to be, I know your mom is listening to one thing and playing one thing for you, but what are your influences coming from?
Well, I guess, their influences, because we found the records. They being, my parents, but me and my sister really loved the Beatles and found a George Benson album. Okay. So they had a wide variety of stuff, a lot of hippy dippy stuff, although they weren't like hippies, but a lot of music of the 60s and 70s, lots of James Taylor. I mean, not that it's a bad thing. I made a bad face. I just
You just got tired of listening to him all the time.
But I can recall my first, I think it was 3 or 4 tapes. I'll remember as I start naming them off. In 1986, I got to buy my music, and Tiffany. So I was go ahead and start with her. Come out strong. Bon Jovi, Slippery When Wet. Yeah. Cinderella. So I got this chick singer, and these 2 hair metal bands. But my saving grace is License to Kill by the Beastie Boys.
Awesome. Okay. Is
I said kill. License to Ill.
License to Ill. Exactly.
We weren't going to correct you. And yeah. But I do like Bon Jovi though. But just throwing that out there. That's just me.
Because we're talking about rock and pop. Yeah. Is License to Ill your introduction into hip hop, or were you hearing stuff before it? Okay, so License to Ill. That
was it. That was the introduction. That was it.
Oh, okay. And you hear that, and then you're thinking, like, where do your musical styles start to go from there?
Well, so that was 5th grade. When I got to 6th grade, I actually heard NWA for the first time on the playground. Somebody had a radio and they're playing this. It blew my mind. I was like, what? Oh my God, what is this? I can't dare get a copy of this and bring this to my house.
You remember what song?
Do what?
You remember what song it was?
It wasn't even it was more of a skit that busts out, and I can't say it.
Yeah.
I won't say it. It's a word that I won't say, but it had to do with it was a police officer skit, and we're gonna kill this bitch, and I was like, what is this?
Yeah. And so from License to Ill, you're saying 5th grade, and Beastie Boy. I'm sorry, and then NWA.
Yeah.
Right. Almost directly after that. Now.
Right.
Then where your musical tastes kind of going as you continue?
Well, I really like The Cure. It's the 80s. So on the radio, it's not like now with all these divisions. The the 93Q, which is now rock, and I'm sorry, it's not rock. It's a country station in Houston.
Yeah.
It was a pop station, but the pop would be like this wide variety of popular music because they didn't know where to put hip hop, and I got to hear all these different things on the radio, like The Cure, and I'm trying to think of who I liked a lot. Depeche Mode, it was 80s, so I like all these different things, and a lot of people liked Metallica, and you could still like Public Enemy and these other things, and Run DMC for sure, but Young MC.
Okay.
And
that's one of those things where I think people just either they forget or they just never knew. Like there was a point where they weren't playing hip hop like that all the time on the radio. There wasn't a hip hop station. I remember we were living in San Antonio, and they had hip hop playing on stations here in Houston. We didn't hear it.
No.
Like we never heard it unless my cousins came and visited, and then they were like, "Oh, y'all should listen to this.
Yeah.
Like play this." And I was like, I've never heard any of this. I was listening to Aerosmith. So I was literally like, that's what, like Aerosmith, they play this song
Baker.
400 times a day. Aerosmith and Anita Baker. That's what I was listening to.
I love Wham still to this day because of that. Like, man, George Michael, come on.
Yeah. That's literally all we were hearing.
Right.
So as you're continuing, so eventually, and you already alluded to it where you were talking about TDC, what happens? What gets you to that point?
Well, to be honest, and this is a forum to be honest, something happened to me when I was a child that I wanted to self-medicate, and music did it at first. Oh, okay. I practiced music compulsively. I was always competitive. I was always the top trombone player in junior high. And when I got to high school, I started drinking alcohol, alcoholically. I drank some in junior high, but when I was at the band parties after the football games, everybody had an older brother. The upperclassmen had, alcohol was real easy to get a hold of. And I found that I could get self-esteem by drinking more than these older kids, because I was a little beanpole, like barely 100 pounds, wet. And I would drink these older guys under the table. And that started a progression that the alcohol wasn't enough. When I discovered marijuana when I was 16, I thought it was the secret to the universe. I thought I found the key.
Yeah. And
then I started going to clubs in Houston. My friend had a fake ID and I had a car. It was a perfect, a perfect team. Yeah. And I started doing psychedelic drugs, started doing acid and ecstasy. And I really, ecstasy was kind of expensive. And I realized, well, if I sell it, I can get high for free. I'm not like totally not listening to Ice Cube, and I didn't listen to enough to NWA. And yeah. I was getting high off my own supply from the very beginning.
From the very beginning.
From the beginning. I was a terrible dope dealer. Just terrible.
Now, is being a terrible dope dealer, is that what got you arrested?
Yes.
So what happened?
Some snitch brought an undercover into my apartment, and I thought the deal was with someone else. I was so high, I didn't realize it was this cokehead that I didn't like. And he brought in undercover, and I still let him in. And I had these 3 sheets of acid, and I had half a sheet in my wallet, and 3 different kinds. And they, I showed them the acid, and they kicked door my apartment, and I didn't have any gloves on. If you know anything about LSD, you should probably wear gloves unless you want to trip. And I put it in an envelope, and me not really thinking clearly, I stuffed the envelope into my mouth because I was going to get out of this somehow. Forget that I have 57 hits in my wallet. And I do thank God for the cop that noticed that I wasn't talking, and he choked me and got me to spit that out. So I did not go to jail first. I went to the hospital.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you took everything that was in the envelope and just tried
300 hits of acid. Most of the time on acid, people take 1 hit or more. They don't take 300 unless they want to spend the rest of their life in a mental institution.
Okay. And the cop choking you like to get you to vomit is what got everything out.
Yes, and fortunately, you know, in that, it didn't hit me. It's grace that I didn't, that I'm here and that didn't wind up in a mental institution. Oh. Well, I mean, I did go to a mental institution, but that's another story.
We're gonna get to
that story too.
We'll get to that later. So you, how long were you in TDC?
I did a little under 2 years on a 10. I did probation first because we got a lawyer, and I got 10 years deferred. And I got 2 DWIs in. The first one I was 2 years in, and I got divorced my first marriage. And then a year later, I got a second DWI, and that's why I got a 10-year sentence back in 2001. So.
Okay, so that's 01. How long, and you wound up staying, I mean, did you fill out, was it the full sentence or just part?
No, I made my first parole. I hung out with some Rip Riders. I used to listen to the prison show with Ray Hill a lot. I don't know if y'all know Ray on 90.1 FM.
We do.
Yeah, Ray. So Ray actually got the law changed. They call it the Ray Hill Bill. In Texas, once the time is served, when off parole or day for day, we can get registered to vote again. A lot of states in the nation disenfranchise people, and once you get that felony, you can't vote again.
Yeah.
But in Texas, it's different. And fortunately, I made my first parole. I got out of prison. I skated for a while, and then last time I got high, and was the day before December 18th, 03. December 19th, 03 was my last drink. So I've been clean and sober for 16 and a half years.
Oh, wow.
I remember when I met you, you told me that I was drinking, and I was like, hey, you want to drink? And he was like, no, man, I've been sober. And I was like, yo, I was telling my brother, I was like, yo, I felt so bad because I'm over here like,
oh, no.
But you told me not to feel bad.
That's the first thing come out of my mouth. That's like, I could just say, no, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm good. Yeah. I've had enough.
Yeah.
You were cool about it. He was like, don't feel bad, dude. And then we continued our conversation. I continued drinking.
Yeah. That's right.
I didn't feel bad. I was like, all right.
Okay, good.
Looking back, you're talking about, you said December, what was the date again?
19th.
December 19th. What was it about that day or that point in your life where you're like, you know what, I'm done. I'm just gonna stop.
That week, actually, I used to play at a wine bar, and I played a gig, and then they actually back in that time period, I actually got a percentage of the bar, and I got paid. It had like unlimited alcohol, and we got paid, so it was like just a perfect situation for an alcoholic. And I ended up going to All right, so it was the perfect situation for an alcoholic. I was getting paid in alcohol, percentage of the bar, and then money. And so I went out after that. I was already lit, and I went to Fitzgerald's. It was punk rock night, and I remember vaguely talking to somebody about Los Carnales, and I gave my keys up. And next thing I know, I'm wake up in the Heights, and I don't know anybody in the house. I don't have keys. It was, dude, where's my car? And I borrowed a car somehow. Someone trusted me with their car. I borrowed a keyboard because I had a gig the next night. This was a Thursday. That night, I got paid in cash. And I hate tweakers, and I don't like crystal meth. I prefer cocaine, because I could go to sleep on cocaine. But there was none available, so I did crystal meth. That's my last drug I did on Thursday, December 18th. The next day, after being up all night, I had like a beer over in Hyde Park in the Montrose, and somebody called me that I didn't like. We both liked the same gal. He didn't drink anymore. He asked me if I wanted to go hang out, and I had spent some time my second half of prison, I was clean and sober, you know, and so I knew, you know, something about it, but that was the turning point. It was fear really that got me, you know, clean and sober. You know, that was enough at the beginning.
The fear of what?
Yeah.
Fear of what the fuck was going to happen next.
Oh man.
I mean, I was out of control. I had I was just going to drink too when I got out. I was going to be like, my dad's a non-alcoholic, loves beer, drinks 2 beers a day, and that's it. And I thought I wanted to try and do that. I'm not wired that way. The first time I tried to drink 2 out of prison, I drank 6. And I wasn't going to smoke dope until March 19th, 2011, because that's the day I got off parole. I was going to wait to get high, like 8-something years. So I was getting high about 8 weeks later, you know, and then the lines get crossed. I'm only doing this, and then I'm only going to do this. And it just, you know, I'm a drug addict and an alcoholic, and I don't have the power of choice. Some people do.
So you just gave it up completely. Cold turkey?
Yeah, I squared up, man. My drug of choice now is caffeine.
I feel that.
Yeah, that's interesting because they always say there are a lot of alcoholics or addicts that kind of move over into, they take that alcoholic habit or that addiction and they apply it to other stuff. Like they'll say, oh, I do caffeine.
Right.
I mean, we have a close personal friend of ours that was an alcoholic and switched over into working out. And now he's like,
Right.
This is my drug. Like, this is
Right.
what I do now. And it gives me that high. So what, was there anything like that in your life that you kind of moved over to?
Bluebell. I really like it.
You don't look like it at all.
I really, you know, I believe in God and all, but Bluebell was my higher power, you know. I can take it down, and you know, I like gambling. I still, you know, that's one of the things you're not supposed to do in prison, not by rules, but if you want to get into a fight, you gamble. And I did, and fortunately, I avoided fights. But you know, and then there's the whole sex thing. That is also
that's so you didn't move into I mean, basically other carnal pleasures, but I mean,
right. Well, it's that dopamine hit. I'm gonna get the dopamine somehow.
Yeah.
What's your Bluebell flavor?
Well, mint chocolate chip is a favorite of addicts. I like
what?
Peanut butter and chocolate, you know, to get chocolate ice cream, and then I like adding peanut butter to a lot of things.
Wait, hold up. Mint chocolate chip is is like a flavor for addicts?
I'm telling you, you find a drug addict and ask them their ice cream flavor, a lot of them are going to say mint chocolate chip.
Mint chocolate chip is my favorite ice cream. Yeah. Followed by peanut butter. Like if it's chocolate and peanut butter stuff, so I don't know. Maybe you know what? Thank you for warning me. So you're now out, you're sober. When did you start? You had this, you know, rich musical background with your family. Right. Did you immediately start getting back into it? Or did you just kind of ease away from it? What was your feelings about music when you got out?
When I got out, I hooked up with a lot of underground cats, like playing with down-tempo DJs, like playing with Rebel Crew and Solar Grooves and playing with DJs. And that's what I did a lot. Actually, I had a friend who he just got out of state jail, and we had a lot of like the kind of getting used. This is before sober, but it leads into, you know, I went right back to music. But when I got sober, I started doing like pro gigs again, because I went to one of my old teachers, and you know, my story was pretty well known in the community, and you know, I told him what I was doing, and I started working again. I started working as a pianist, and I turned pro in '94 when I got out of high school. I started college. I started doing gigs like at Astroworld. Y'all remember with the, you know, this little Dixieland with the funny hat and the red bow tie, playing at the like Holiday in the Park and stuff like that. I used to do that, and then play tuxedo gigs, like high society stuff. And, you know, that's the thing, man. That was my dream, was to be a musician and to specifically play jazz. Because I was turned on to that. That's the part I left off in junior high. I had jazz, trombone. I was taught classical, but all of my guys from 7th grade on could improvise and turn me on to all the classics, like J.J. Johnson and even Glenn Miller, going back earlier. But you know, I was introduced to jazz at age 12.
And so, you know, I was reading a lot of your bio information. You talk about being so attracted to jazz, even though you're learning all of this classical stuff. What attracted you to just jazz in general?
The freedom, you know, the creativity. I mean, I love classical orchestral music, but, you know, although it can be interpreted in different ways, it's going to be the same thing, essentially. I don't play Autumn Leaves the same way every time. You know, if I play a standard, I get to improvise. You know, that's what it is, the creativity of improvisation.
Is a lot of what attracted you, or was there any elements of jazz that also attracted you to hip hop? Because we discovered you from what you were doing in Houston hip hop realm. Yes. So yeah, can you expound on that?
Yes, I mean, as soon as you say that, I think A Tribe Called Quest, and they're, you know, they're sampling Miles Davis and the early. I think of the creativity in hip hop with freestyling and rhythm. You know, the rhythm is one of the most appealing things about rap music.
In particular, what about Houston hip hop? Because you've done some, I mean, you do some covers, or I don't know, what would you call them, covers of hip hop songs? I don't know if you necessarily call these covers. They're fully thought out musical pieces.
Yeah, inspired by.
They're covers, but transcriptions. If someone really knows the song, if you listen to the melody, so I took rhythmic dictation of the rhyme, and then took that rhythm and created a melody based upon the chord structure, which is usually 2 or 3 chords, you know, repeating chords. And that way the heads can listen to this instrumental and know, oh, wow, he knows all the verses to Want to Be a Baller. They're doing this, everything. That's Hawk going there. Okay, that's Youngstar.
Yeah.
Not just, okay, these are jazz musicians improvising something, you know, or doing like what not knocking what people have done. I'm not the first one that, like the cover, well, they just do the hook.
That's true.
And then, you know, like with you know, with marching bands, you know, they might play it, but they, to my knowledge, no one transcribed the rhythm and made a melody, because that bridges the gap to a whole nother audience that doesn't like rap. It doesn't know what the pillars of hip hop are.
I think that's interesting you're saying that, because you do hear that on your transcription of Want to Be a Baller, especially on like My Block, On My Block Scarface sample. You hear it start up, and the intro, it sounds exactly like On My Block.
Yes.
Perfect. And then when the rapping is supposed to start, it's like a whole new musical piece. Like you literally see like all of these artists. If you know, when we show the video, you see these artists doing their version of what they would hear on the song. Right. What were your thoughts when? Well, actually, let's go back, because first of all, your name, Doc Loke. Where do you get that from?
Well, I do have a doctorate in music from the Moore School of Music at University of Houston. So that's the doctor part, and it's not that it's important, but it's a DMA. A lot of people say PhD. I almost said THC. That's something else. PhD. But it's more of a performance base. I got a doctorate in conducting with emphasis in jazz. So the loc part, I already talked about prison, talked about being a bad dope dealer that got caught, did time, got out, got sober. So my buddies from Fifth Ward call me Henny Loc. So
okay.
I loced out. So I took the loc part of that part of who I am, and then the doc part of who I also am. So.
And then for our audience that's going to be looking you up, and what we're showing is your group is Doc, Loc, and the Swingers. Who are the Swingers?
Right. Well, so I got that double meaning because of swing. This in the jazz tradition, swing, swang, swang, swangers. So they're my swangers, and then I also got the elbows, got those. Someday I'm gonna get some of them. I turned 44 this year. I figure I can be tipping on fofos all year.
That's true.
So I'm working on it.
That's true. You're already tipping on fofos at 44.
I'm about to say at 44. That's perfect. So what inspired, I mean, how did you find these guys? And then what was your thought initially? Like, you're like, hey, I want to show these Houston classics to people in a different kind of way. Like, what was your pitch to these guys, or were they always in like, yo, when are we gonna do this?
Well, I didn't have to really pitch it. I mean, because it's a gig. They're paid for everything they do, to rehearse, to record, to perform. These are all pros. So that's where they came. Many of them are top call jazz guys, but there's also some classical musicians, and I don't want to leave out. They're mostly dudes, but my Barry player Grace Estrada is a gangster on the baritone saxophone. She plays other reed instruments. I met her at the University of Houston. Many of those cats are University of Houston related.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but if I back up to the conception, the first person that I told my idea to was Dan Workman, who is my co-producer. Dan, who used to own Sugar Hill for so long. And before that, one of the things I have to give credit, I didn't just come this out of thin air. Jason Moran, PVA grad, world traveler, cold piano player, and amazing musician, came to U of H one time he had the little Sony mini disc recorder, and he played this woman speaking Mandarin in an airport that he had recorded her. And then he just started playing along, and he's playing the rhythm. He has no idea what she's saying, but he creates this soundscape based upon the rhythm. And I was like, okay, I took that and then that's where I got the idea to do the rhythmic dictation of these rap songs. And one of the things too is, from a practical standpoint, I have a couple of jazz albums that predate this, and nobody really buys jazz.
Okay. So this is also like, hey, let me start to reach out into other markets. And it's almost like I will say, your transcriptions are not just, it doesn't sound like a cover. It's there are so many elements of jazz. It's almost like you're bringing hip hop people and you're showing them, hey, I can also do this as well.
Right.
That's also connected you with a number of Houston artists. We've seen you perform with Scarface.
No, that's a dream. I haven't.
Oh, that's a dream.
I don't have direct contact. I've never met Scarface. I know he's aware of the project because I was asked to put together a group to play for his birthday party, this a couple of years back. It didn't happen, but I did not have direct contact with Face. I did volunteer, and I voted for him because I'm in his district, but I voted for him for city council.
Yeah. I'm about to say, so that's a word out. So that is a dream to play with Scarface, play background Scarface. But
it can happen, Scarface.
I was about to say, it can still happen. You did play with Bushwick Bill.
Yes, I had the opportunity to get him on a track, and that was one of the. It was a real special experience getting to record with him, because I had met him a couple of times at Sugar Hill, and I was up there mixing the ESG track that it's not released yet, but I did Swangin' and Bangin', recorded that with the big band. Okay. And E came in. My wife sang a hook on it, like she sang something, some background stuff, and we were mixing it, so E wasn't there, and Bushwick comes in looking for his producer, and I had already I'd already recorded Hung Up on My Baby for a documentary, and because they couldn't get the rights from Rap-A-Lot, they didn't have the bread to pay for rights to use Mind Playing Tricks on Me. So I did the whole song. So I already had the master of it. That was part of my payment on that deal. And when I met Bushwick, like on a business sense, I just took my shot, and I pulled together some money that I didn't have, and the way it came about just told me it was the right thing, because I raised a couple $1,000s in less than 2 days. And and I know he was doing stuff for free, and I was told by someone that he would probably just do it, but that didn't sit right with me. And so again, coming from this jazz background, I'm expecting to show up at the studio, okay, 12 o'clock, we're gonna go in, we're gonna start recording, and then we're gonna get in and it's gonna get out. And I showed up, I was real nervous. Real nervous. And I go in, I see Bill, and he's like, "You got a car?" I'm like, "Oh yeah." And he's like, "Okay." He gets his backpack, and so we go on an adventure, because at the time, he had, for those who don't know, he had pancreatic cancer, and he had chemo, portable chemo, which I'd never even heard of nor seen. And so he's sick from this poison that is fighting the cancer, and he has me take him to the clinic.
Oh wow!
And he won't wear a seatbelt. He's telling me how that was the funniest part, because he's trying to tell me how he's been in all these car accidents and how he knows how to fly out of cars or some kind of some crazy. I'm like, what am I gonna do? Say, "Oh, okay, Mr. Bushwick, would you please put, I don't want to get pulled over and get a ticket, and." So yeah, we're riding around Houston, and then when we went to I hope this isn't we went to IRS hearing. Well, he did, because he's taking care of his business. Yeah, he's getting everything. He's getting his affairs in order. Yeah. So 3 hours later, when we're back at the studio, I no longer feel nervous. I learned a lot about the man that I didn't know, and I felt like his buddy.
Oh wow!
And I'm gonna say there's a couple of famous rappers that have passed the joint to me, Bill being one of them, and I thought about it. Be like, this is once in a lifetime opportunity.
But you still managed to maintain, because I was about to say, still working in music. I mean, like you said, there's very early on in your career, there's a lot of drugs and alcohol that are around. How do you? Yeah. I mean, how do you maintain your sobriety?
It's it's not a cliche, but it's one day at a time, one moment at a time. And I give thanks to my higher power. It's I didn't do this on my own. I made a decision, but I mentioned words like God and Jesus and grace, and that's what saved me. Some people ask for proof of God, and say there's no proof of God, and I say, skinny white boy from me with no affiliations can go through the prison system without getting into a fight. Tell me there's no God.
That's true. That's true.
I was about to say. So, what are some of the other things that we can expect from Doc Lock and the Swingers? Like, I know things are different right now. You guys are. I would always see performances or things like that from you guys. And now, you know, with the virus, things are kind of shut down. But what are our plans now for the future?
Well, I'm writing the second album, you know, so that's important to, you know, I'm doing that. I'd already had other tracks that I've been working on. So composing the music is paramount. We do have a gig with Paul Wall at Discovery Green in June of 2021. We were going to play with him. You know,
that's what I remember. It was one of the things I was looking forward to trying to go to, and then of course, Rona.
Yeah.
Rona. So that got pushed to next summer.
Next summer, yeah.
Okay. So Paul Wall, what Houston artists are? Of course, Scarface. But are there artists that music you're like, I really want to transcribe this? You've talked about Scarface. You've talked about ESG, reworking some of that stuff, but what are some of the songs or things like that you're like, yo, this is what I really like to try out?
Well, I don't want to forget that we worked with Bun, I got to do, you know, and I did put his Draped Up on the, you know, the original release, Doc Loc and the Swangers, but then I got the opportunity to play at the Museum of Fine Arts, and then we did 2 songs with him. I'd like to work with Bun more. I'd like to do, you know, if he's open, I'd do a whole album of his stuff. And I mean, one of the songs, I'd like to do Knocking Doors Down from him.
Yeah.
I already had the piano. I mean, the piano part is pretty simple, but I've started that. Still Pimpin' Pins. I'd love to work with Kiki. I actually talked to him at a record store day, and I asked him, you know, I bought the record, and I said, which one of these would you want to, you know, because at the time he had already done Southside with the Suffers, so I wasn't going to do Southside again.
Yeah.
But you know, Pimpin' Pins, it's unique in that it's one of the few songs that DJ Screw actually raps on.
Yeah.
And so I want to finish that one. Knocking Doors Down. That was always one of my favorites, which is hard to say with so many great rappers in town. I want to do K Reno.
Oh yeah.
Because a lot. I mean, not everybody knows.
Yeah.
About K Reno, but I mean,
he has such a huge catalog. That a lot of people don't, like, you just have to know it. Like, if you know it, you know it. And I feel like anybody that gets exposed to his music is I feel like it's up. When I got exposed to him, it was, how come I didn't hear this before?
Yeah.
Like he's been doing this for how long? And I heard him a while ago. Like, it was a long, like the first time I heard him, I was like, he has how many albums already? Right. And he still continues to release consistently every year. So that's a Houston legend.
Right. And then also another kind of overlooked, Devin the Dude.
Of course.
And I you know, when I think of K Reno, I think of Conscious Cats. One of my dear friends who passed away, I want to do a song by Zen, Wally Akeem. He started, well, he was one of the people that started All Real Radio over in Third Ward.
Really?
And he's he's one of my biggest influences, and nobody even knows who he is because he's a conscious cat. And it's you know, let's see if I can remember. I thought hip hop was a state of mind, not just a punchline. Would somebody hit rewind? I mean, that's the song I want to do, and it's going to be the one that nobody, you know, it's going to be more deep cuts than, you know, what was played on the box.
Absolutely.
And then speaking what was also not played on the box, I want to do a Trey song.
Oh yeah.
And Zero song.
Speaking of what's not played on the box, absolutely, because he has plenty of stuff that could be getting played right now.
Yeah,
right. I went to his listening party after Nipsey passed. And listened to that. That was that was an experience, being there. And what's his name? I could see his face. It was one of these like Graham, famous guys. And I mean, he's an actor and a rapper, and Gilly. I got to meet him at that. I went in total like fan. I got my picture with him, and he was like so cool. And I was like, and then I met Willie D. I was like, man, this is a fucking party.
So I mean, you've done a lot working within Houston, and you've talked about how you want to get more music and things like that and more appearances out there. How can your fans and your future fans find you? Like, where should they go look to see where they can find out the new information about you?
Well, I think Instagram, and I do have a website, but I don't update it much. I'm the one that controls it. So I do have DocLokeandTheSwingers.com, but that's a good place to go for the links to I was going to share your Instagram. Yeah.
So you've got Doc Loke and the Swingers, and of course you're
gonna follow back, right?
You got YouTube. We follow you on. Absolutely. The funny thing is, and this is a big question for people. I'd be like, hey, are you gonna follow us? And I was like, it's funny, our page only follows us. I said, we're already following you. Like I said, my page, Dr. Douglas, his page, Avery Zadius. I was like,
I constantly repost you.
Yes. So, I was like, how do you think we know? Like, we're sitting up here liking and following, and usually though, it's funny, it'll be like, we'll interview somebody, and months later, they'll be like, oh, this is you?
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, that's us. I said, we don't even really be on our page. We be over here.
I follow you. I follow your other page. I follow your wife. Like, I constantly, I was saying, hey, like we be out here, but before even going further, you sing as well, correct?
Oh yeah.
I do. Yeah.
How long you been singing?
All my life. Like I said, I can remember the first gig I had was at church singing Little Drummer Boy when I was like 5.
Oh wow.
And by gig, I mean an unpaid gig.
Well, yeah. It's church,
but I got experience.
Yeah, we all worked for free in church. So that's basically what it is. Like, that's your first gig. I like that.
Yeah. And I really got into singing. It was Harry Connick Jr. He's one of my big influences.
You could tell.
When Harry Met Sally came out, that soundtrack with the big band, because I'd listened to old timey big band, but I hadn't heard a modern big band swing like that. And I just started, I'm singing to girls and singing those songs, and yeah.
It works.
Is that how you met your wife?
She was actually looking for a pianist. And she came and found me, and it ended up turning into a date. And we've done some gigs together, but anyhow, shout out to Melissa. She's pretty cool.
Oh, okay.
Music changed your life all for the better.
Yeah, mostly. Well, I mean, this is a, I'm not going to come in and say everything's cool. We are separated. 2020 is now a slang, not a slang, but more of a curse word.
Oh, sorry.
I feel like that's how it is for a lot of people now. 2020 has been a big year of changes.
Yeah, but in in the bad, there's always good, and I keep my head up and grinding, and if I'm not with with her, it gives me a chance to work on me.
Yeah,
and music and a lot of other things. It's not
And that's a great thing about your story. It involved just in your life in general in music. You have figured out how to find these bright spots in these kind of moments of darkness and just flip it around. Like, so even, when you're telling us a story, you're very optimistic for going back and telling us like all these things that have happened to you, where you're like, hey, I was in TDC and I made it through. You know, just saying like I can look back and I can see the good things that are occurring. And so, you know, we're happy that you came out. I still don't understand how Bluebell is your vice and you're still skinny. But
oh no, not now. No, we were I'm not skinny, but Bluebell is no longer my go-to.
Oh, okay. I was like, how are you eating all this Bluebell? I said, you're you know.
No, not at 44. At 24, maybe, but not now.
What's your go-to now?
That's a good question. It's coffee.
There you go.
Coffee. Well, coffee will keep you slim. All right.
He's drinking that right now. He's saying, going for the cup. Going for the cup. Man,
oh, man.
Thank you once again, for coming out. It was great. Another Houston legend that we had with us today. In My Humble Opinion podcast, and Doc Loke just letting us know that no matter what you do in life, if you choose to change, you can change. And he did. So once again, I am Avery, like a very nice guy, also known as Avery Zadius. And we have our co-host with us, Jess Devon. Boom. Jess Devon. And we've been here with Doc Loke of Doc Loke and the Swingers. Also, Henry Darragh. Darragh, see?
I knew that. That's why I was calling him Henry D, because I was like, I'm going to mess this up. Because you said Darragh, and I want to call you Henry Darragh.
Yeah, I dare you to forget how to.
There we go. I dare you to forget.
Like O'Hara.
Henry Darragh.
He gave us so many ways to say it, and I still fucked it up.
Either way, so people need to know Henry Darragh, and it's Doc Loke, not Doc Locke. Don't say Doc Locke, say Doc Loke. There you go.
Once again, in my humble opinion, where the opinions are humbled and the words aren't jumbled. Thank you and good night. Bang.